Please join me in the reading of Psalm 146, verses 4 through 9 responsibly. Happy are they who have the God of Jacob for their help,
Whose hope is the Lord their God,
who made heaven and earth, the seas, and all that is them,
who keeps his promises forever,
who gives justice to those who are oppressed.
and who to those who are.
The Lord sets the prisoners free.
The Lord opens the eyes of the blind. The Lord lifts up those who are bowed down.
The Lord loves the righteous, and the Lord cares for the stranger.
He sustains the orphan and widow, but frustrates the way of the wicked.
The Lord shall reign forever.
Through God, O Zion, throughout all generations. Hallelujah.
Our Old Testament reading this morning comes from Proverbs 22, verses 1 through 2, 8 through 9, 22 through 23. A good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, and favor is better than silver or gold. The rich and the poor have this in common: the Lord is a maker of them all. Whoever sows injustice will reap calamity, and the rod of anger will fail. Those who are generous are blessed, for they share their bread with the poor. Do not rob the poor because they are poor, or crush the afflicted at the gate, for the Lord pleads their case and despoils alike those who despoil them. Our gospel reading this morning comes from Mark 7, verses 24 through 30. Jesus set out and went away to the region of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know he was there. Yet he could not escape notice. But a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately heard about him, and she came and bowed down at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile, of Syrophoenician origin. She begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. He said to her, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." But she answered him, "Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." Then he said to her, "For saying that, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." So she went home and found the child lying on the bed, and the demon was gone. This is the reading.
There was a sermon up here a minute ago. Someone make the sermon. Here it is.
I want to say hi to Charles. I want you to keep an eye on Lynn, though, once you get here, because she may walk off with your sermon, too. All right. That's sort of like a preacher's panic moment. I'll recover in a second. It's sort of like, if you're a musician, you walk over and your music is gone, right? Jesus said to the Syrophoenician woman, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." Did Jesus just call that woman a dog? That poor, desperate woman with a troubled, ill daughter? Someone seeking the healing touch of God? That's not what we expect from Jesus. Did he really say that? I guess so. It's recorded right there in Mark 7. Preachers through the years have tried to explain away the harshness of the passage, and I'm as guilty as many of them. Well, one of the excuses that we make for Jesus is he's really just testing her faith. That theory really doesn't wash anymore because it presents a cold-hearted Jesus who tests and taunts us in our deepest needs. Another ploy that preachers have used is looking at the word Jesus uses for dog to soften the passage. It is puppy or pet. That also strains credulity. Or maybe Jesus was just having a bad day. Before going any further, we need to spend some time looking at the historical context of this passage. We catch up with Jesus on the road. He's heading north, deep into Gentile territory. Now, Jews didn't think much of Gentiles, Syrophoenicians, and all those people that lived up there. And there are numerous references in the scriptures to Jews calling those folks dogs. But that still doesn't get Jesus off the hook. He still looks like he's pretty rude, doesn't he? So there's got to be even a better reason for his calling out this woman, of all things, a dog. So let's keep digging. What's going on at this time when this passage is put together? There's a conflict. Jesus and the religious leaders of his time, that conflict was escalating. It was starting to get to a point of no return. Last week we heard a little bit about that, what I called pots and pans and dirty hands passage from Mark 7. That's how I summarize how Jesus and his opponents disagreed about ritual cleanliness. And Jesus was criticizing them because they seemed more concerned with external matters than with internal ones. But these people opposing him seemed to be more interested in the letter of the law than the spirit of the law and the love of God behind the law. So there's a controversy swirling. Well, that tired you out, it tired me out, and it tired out Jesus. So he takes a break from the controversy that's swirling around him, and he leaves the conflict behind, and he sets out for Gentile territory to hang out where nobody would find him. The text says he entered into a house, probably a Jewish house, and didn't want anybody to know. He wanted to take a break. His attempt to keep a low profile did not work. A fiercely pushy Syrophoenician woman, a Gentile no less, with a sick daughter, confronts him. And boy, is she determined. She'd heard about Jesus. And she knew that Jesus had something that could heal her little girl. And no one was going to stop her from seeing Jesus, not even Jesus himself. And she's ready to storm the gates of heaven. She knows that Jesus has the power to make her little girl whole and healthy again. So she did what many of us might do. She burst through that door where Jesus was hanging out and told him in no uncertain terms that she needed him to heal her daughter right now, right away. Imagine you're sitting home and quiet, maybe the Bible on your lap, and you thought you had gotten away from all the pressures of life, and someone comes bursting through the door like that. Would you be a little shaken? Well, even a well-intentioned bursting through the door would startle any of us, and it certainly shocked Jesus. The fact that she was a Gentile, a woman, and a pushy one to boot, really caught Jesus off guard. And so Jesus turns to the standard Jewish default response to Gentiles. Yeah, he did. Now, I rephrase it, make it a little more contemporary. So she burst through the door. Someone he didn't know, someone who was a foreigner, someone who just broken in, and he says, "Who are you? You're a Gentile. Whoa, get in line. The Jewish people have priority here. If there's anything left over, the Gentiles, people like you, the dogs, well, then they can have it." Now, given the circumstances, I think that storyline is reasonable. But this quick-witted woman will not be deterred. She's not interested in dealing with Jewish-Gentile relationships. No, she wants what Jesus has. She wants healing for her little girl, and she knows that Jesus has the power to do that. And Jesus, blown away by her demand and the way she demanded it, expresses amazement at her, catch this pun now, amazement at her dogged persistence. Okay? He tells the woman, after he regroups, "Your daughter is okay. Your little girl is healed." And indeed she was. Mother went home, found her little girl in bed, whole and healed. Did Jesus change his mind about reaching out to Gentiles? Maybe, just maybe, Jesus had not yet realized the full extent of his mission or the radical nature of the kingdom that he was proclaiming. It may shock you to think that Jesus could change his mind, but it shouldn't. In the scriptures, God changes his mind more than a dozen times when people make urgent pleas. So I think it is perfectly reasonable that Jesus could change his mind. This encounter with this supercharged Gentile woman was an extraordinary moment for Jesus. An outsider, and a woman no less, pushed and stretched him to enlarge his ministry. And indeed he does. You read just the next few verses, Jesus heads from this place to the Decapolis, a group of 10 Greco-Roman cities in Galilee, where there are many Gentiles, and where he heals a man who cannot hear nor speak. So, this gutsy Gentile mother actually taught the teacher. And as a result of that, might have some things to teach you and me. So let's examine them. What is she teaching us? First of all, she teaches us about the power of the outsider. People different from us can stretch our perspectives about our country, our world, ourselves, people who are different. But we have to listen. So, what happens when we meet someone as gutsy and as desperate as this Syrophoenician woman? Someone who has lived at the margins. How are you and I going to respond when that person bursts into our life? What will we learn? Will that experience open us up or shut us down? So that's the first thing this woman teaches us, about the power of the outsider. People different from ourselves who can stretch us and cause us to grow, become more loving. Second, this Gentile mother knew that Jesus had something that her daughter desperately needed, and she was willing to go to any lengths to achieve it, even to the point of arguing with this famous rabbi and healer. And you know, I think that's often the case with faith. Faith shows itself most fully when it's exercised for the benefit of others. She had faith, but she exercised her faith for her daughter. When we act for others, it reminds us that we're not created to be isolated beings, but rather we find our true selves in community, in relationship, and when we are advocating for one another. So that begs several questions. Where do you and I see the world hurting? How can we become involved in its healing? Have you and I looked around to discover who needs us? What do they need from us? And how will you and I mobilize our resources to be their advocates, to stand with them? Jesus got it wrong at the beginning. But he listened. He listened to that brave, bold, loving mother and changed his mind about helping her, stretching to become a more loving person himself. And our challenge is to keep growing like Jesus did. To keep growing like Jesus did. In the next chapter of Mark, Jesus says, only those who give away their lives will save it. I think that is true. I think Jesus might have learned just how true that was from that brave woman on that remarkable day. Which begs my final question. Who will be your teacher this week? Amen.